All right, we're live.
Oh. Do we start?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to our debate on Tele-ABA versus in-home therapy. My name is Denise Figueroa. I'm 25 years old. I'm from Miami, Florida. I will be the introducer for this debate. I'm joined by the rest of the team. We have Lauren Saltz, who is 21 years old from Colorado Springs, Colorado. She is our summarizer and researcher for the pro Tele-ABA side. We also have Rosie Lambert, who is 24 years old from San Francisco, California. She is our illustrator and fielder for the pro Tele-ABA side. Then we have Adam Garcia, who is 29 years old from El Paso, Texas. He is our summarizer and researcher for the con Tele-ABA pro and home therapy side. And finally, we have Devin Burden, who is 26 years old from Houston, Texas, and she is our fielder and illustrator for the con Tele-ABA pro and home therapy side. So let's begin with a little background and a brief summary of our overall topic. As stated in the textbook on Applied Behavior Analysis for Teachers by Troutman and Alberto, applied behavioral analysis is defined as the systematic application of behavioral principles which aim to change socially significant behavior to a meaningful degree through the verification of functional relations between behavior and intervention. Applied behavioral analysis is typically used to target problem behaviors in developmentally disabled individuals, but it can also be used for things like skill acquisition and other targets as well. Applied behavioral analysis is traditionally implemented in home, clinics, or in school settings by trained professionals in the field of ABA, like registered behavioral technicians or RBTs, and board-certified behavioral analysts like BCBAs. So Tele-ABA is a relatively new field of ABA that takes on the structure of telehealth. Telehealth is described by the Autism Research and Treatment Journal as a communication technology that is used to deliver specialized services in real time or live over geographical distances. So telehealth uses interactive and personalized features to communicate and share information like video conferencing, what we're doing right now, 3D interactive virtual programs, computer software, and other advanced technologies. Telehealth has been used to teach various communicative, social, emotional, and academic skills to developmentally disabled individuals through the simple use of smartphones, computers, and basic access to internet. Our debate will focus on the main points of cost and accessibility as they relate to Tele-ABA and in-home therapy. Both Tele-ABA and in-home therapy have several pros and cons as they relate to cost and accessibility, which will be further elaborated on during the debate. Both of these points also carry respective ethical concerns within the field of ABA. Our textbook by Bailey and Birch entitled Ethics for Behavior Analysts thoroughly covers each code from the Behavior Analyst Certification Board's Professional and Ethical Compliance Code for Behavior Analysts. These documents govern what is appropriate and expected behavior by providers of ABA. Based on the information in those primary sources, there are several ethics codes which can be applied to the debate of ABA, Tele-ABA, and in-home therapy. So some of these codes are codes 1.04E, which summarizes integrity, 1.05C, which focuses on professional and scientific relationships, 2.06, which covers maintaining confidentiality, and 2.13, which details accuracy in billing reports. So let's start our debate. First, we're going to hear from the pro Tele-ABA side, as Lauren, our summarizer and researcher, focuses on the pros associated with Tele-ABA as well as cost.
All right, so when talking about telehealth as it relates to ABA, there is a lot of research that supports its effectiveness and reducing problem behavior. When observing and providing treatment through telehealth, it provides aid to those in areas who don't have access to treatment or are very far from it. So not only is it wide-reaching, but the cost is also about 1/3 of in-home therapy. It creates a continuation of care because the training is for the not through other staff members such as RBTs or BCBAs. And that increases the cost and provides less time for the parents to learn skills and help implement ABA on their own. This hands-on care creates more of an opportunity for the parent to learn with observation by a trained behavior analyst. There are some ethical concerns that rise with telehealth, and one of them can be fraud. There's a higher risk of fraud because no one is there in person, but this can be counteracted by either recording the sessions or logging meeting times when they took place. Although telehealth is newer, there can be more problems to help initiate it, but it should still be explored because of the evidence that supports lower costs and higher amounts of parent training. Although there can be technical errors, such as lagging video conferencing or unclear observation videos, the errors can be worked out before observation, and the actual implementation of ABA services, it can still create a smoother process for the parent and the behavior analyst to get services and start services. So these services, if used on a wider scale, can reach many people with a lesser cost to the client and family. To support cost effectiveness, an article by Lindgren et al. In 2016 says that in-home, which is a therapist present and a BCBA present to supervise, clinic-based telehealth, which is therapist in the clinic and a BCBA is there to consult, and a BCBA is there over video to consult, and home-based telehealth, which is either a RBT or BCBA coaching the parent over video conferencing, were assessed for 107 children with DD or ASD. And it showed that all of the methods of ABA resulted in a greater than 90% decrease in problem behavior. So the costs for implementing were lowest for telehealth in clinic, or telehealth over the in-home therapy. So for in-home therapy, it was about $6,000 to complete treatment, $3,068 for clinic telehealth, and only $2,146 for home telehealth with no physical clinic present. So seeing that all of these methods created a greater than 90% reduction, and they were all around 93 to 95%, and there wasn't a great difference between in-home versus telehealth, it's more effective to use this because it's more cost effective and it can reach people that have internet access, which is very common with the need for technology. So limitations to the study can be collecting data at different times for each treatment, and there were also different levels of severity of ASD or DD in the study.
Those are some great points, Lauren. So now Rosie, our pro Tele-ABA illustrator, will further elaborate on cost and Tele-ABA.
Okay, so this first image is taken from the Interactive Autism Network, and it shows the impact on finances that a family with a child diagnosed with ASD experiences. So therapy can quickly become expensive, and many parents or caregivers report that an ASD diagnosis has a somewhat to very negative impact on their financial situation. Very few reported a positive impact, while 20% reported no impact. So the total 78% of people who reported a negative impact could greatly benefit from Tele-ABA, since, as previously mentioned, it's about a third the cost of what in-home ABA requires. And negative financial situations can increase family stress, leading to further issues in the day-to-day activity of the family. And this can in turn negatively impact the client. So Tele-ABA can potentially help lessen the financial burden that families report they experience, which can in turn increase the quality of life for both the client and the family. The next visual is a bar graph taken from Lindgren et al. And further depicts the monetary amount that in-person therapy and Tele-ABA requires. So as you can see, in-home therapy can cost close to $300 weekly for families, while Tele-ABA costs close to $160 a week. Also shown is the cost for staff and facility needs on a weekly basis, and both of these areas cost significantly more than what is needed for Tele-ABA to be implemented.
Awesome. So now that we have a clear picture of the pros associated with Tele-ABA as well as costs related to ABA, we'll be hearing from our con-Tele-ABA pro in-home therapy summarizer and researcher, Adam.
Hey guys. As much as we wish to help people regardless of their condition, it tends to come at a price. Things that don't really cost much would be like holding the door for someone or even sparing change for the less fortunate. But if it costs you money to become a BCBA, it might be hard for you to give free services, especially if you're the one that has to pay for your schooling and you have other bills to pay. ABA itself is just not a cheap service, which is why we have insurance companies to basically cover the costs. To top it off, according to the American Psychological Association, practice guidelines that are designed to promote high quality, safe, and effective Tele-ABA treatments have yet to be developed. So in other words, I mean that there's no actual blueprint to run a successful Tele-ABA business. According to Joy Pollard, she wrote a research article on concerns with Tele-ABA. Pollard said that the services may seem cheap up front, but once you consider all the safety equipment and required technology, it's not so cheap after all. For example, if there is a child that headbutts the table and other objects, then it is required for the parent to make the home safe by adding padding to the objects and the tables and stuff like that. But if the child were to go to the center, it is a responsibility of the BCBA to get the safety equipment necessary for the client. If the child is surrounded by like glass fixtures, sharp corners, just like moldings, nails, stuff like that, it tends to be really pricey to be able to add the safety equipment. And that's just talking about safety, not necessarily the technology yet. As for the technology, you also have to pay for internet services. You have to have some reliable video conferencing platforms. There's a lot of things you have to pay for that, you don't really see in the big picture. And also don't forget the device. If you have, like, say you're doing it on a laptop, a computer, or even your phone, if the child comes close to it and breaks it, hopefully you have warranty to cover it. If you don't, then you're the one that basically has to pay for it, because it's really rare for a center to provide you with a device, which they can, as long as the insurances want to pay for it. Let's see. To make matters worse, materials to conduct ABA costs as well. So like if you need certain materials to run receptive things or expressive things, the materials themselves, the parents have to pay for. So at a center, everybody else, at the center, they pay for it. But for in-home, it's your responsibility to gather the materials to be able to conduct it.
I see. So there's definitely some important things to consider regarding Tele-ABA and costs. So Devin, our con-Tele-ABA pro in-home therapy illustrator, is now going to provide some further support on the topic.
So this image here shows the benefits of both Tele-ABA and in-home therapy. The benefits for in-home therapy, such as it being short-term cost-effective, meaning there isn't much work needed to set up the therapy session to just your home, and pretty much the behavior therapist comes to you and brings all the materials. For Tele-ABA, one would need reliable internet access and a computer with a sufficient camera. But this may be difficult and costly, and getting access to this type of equipment and to the families in rural areas can be hard also. Also, immediate feedback and reinforcement is provided with in-home therapy, whereas Tele-ABA you are not always able to get access to immediate reinforcement.
Devin makes some great points. So what about accessibility? Our pro Tele-ABA summarizer and researcher, Lauren, is now going to elaborate on the point of accessibility as it relates to ABA.
So as I said previously, this is far-reaching compared to in-home services. This can be implemented anywhere that has a device that can do video conferencing and has internet access. So according to Wacker et al., parents conducted FAs for their children who either had ASD or PDD-NOS, and they did this through the coaching of a BCBA through telehealth. And after conducting these FAs, the parents were coached on how to implement FCT based on the function of their child's behavior. So FCT reduced problem behavior by over 90%, 93.5% on average for children that they looked at in the study. And it took an average of 21 sessions and 13 weeks to complete the treatment. So FCT is very important to ABA, and if it can be delivered through telehealth, then this can open up a much larger area for people to gain access to services and for parents to help reduce their child's problem behaviors when they are remote or cannot gain access to services, or they have to drive hundreds of miles to get to a clinic. A limitation to this study was that the treatment was always implemented by the BCBA where they were present, or the BCBAs were observing and the parents were implementing, but there was no IOA to review sessions. So the treatment integrity might be low, and to increase it, the families should have recorded sessions at home and have them reviewed by the BCBAs.
Awesome. So now we have some more support on the point of accessibility as it relates to Tele-ABA from our pro Tele-ABA illustrator, Rosie.
So these next few visuals are going to show you what it looks like for families receiving Tele-ABA and coaching from behavior analysts. In the first photo, the woman whose screen is largest is a BCBA who's consulting on the case of the children of each parent who's shown at the bottom of the screen. Parents who are, let's say, for example, receiving FCT training based on the same function of behavior can meet with their assigned behavior analyst to learn the types of consequences that are maintaining their child's behavior, how to use FCT and reinforcement to produce more socially significant behavior, potentially role play different situations that they may all similarly experience, and ask questions regarding specific situations that they might have experienced. It's also an example of group parent education that can be accessed through Tele-ABA. So the next photo shows a caregiver and a child video conferencing with a BCBA. It's a one-on-one interaction and helps the caregiver learn specifically how to teach the child new skills and how to address problematic behavior. So the BCBA can also observe in real time how the caregiver reacts to the child's behavior and give on-the-spot guidance. This also allows the caregiver to become competent in the skills that a therapist would typically use during an in-home therapy session and lets the parent implement the necessary behavioral strategies. For families who may not necessarily have access to companies that provide services, this can seriously benefit them. Families who also may not have time in their schedules to be home for in-home therapy can benefit from Tele-ABA. because they can learn and master techniques during their video conferencing chats with their BCBA and later implement them throughout the day, which can help their child gain independence in a lot of different areas of their daily routines.
Great visual support. So let's turn back to Adam, who is our con Tele-ABA pro in-home therapy summarizer and researcher, with a rebuttal on the point of accessibility as it relates to Tele-ABA and in-home therapy.
Thank you. Not everyone qualifies for Tele-ABA. There's a lot to consider when seeing if Tele-ABA is the right choice for a specific client. Before I go further into detail with that, I wanted to pick up on the softwares used for video conferencing. So, according to Pollard, not all platforms meet the HIPAA requirements for video conferencing. Using the right platform can be costly, and to throw another bill for the parents, who's going to pay for the software? Will the BCBA be the one only pay part of it and the parents pay for their own part? Or is the BCBA supposed to pay for the whole thing? A lot of that's based on the BCBA themselves. Hopefully that's my last comment on cost. Anyways, back to the qualifications for client selection for Tele-ABA. According to the American Psychological Association, there are 2 core ethical principles at minimum that must be taken into consideration, which would be protecting the consumer and taking care to do them no harm. A few things that fall into these categories of principles are the age of the client, the severity of the challenging behaviors, and the support system within the community. So let's break these down. As for age is important because at a certain point, the insurance will no longer cover the client. And also, depending on the age, they'll only get so much money for specific services. So for example, there are clients out there that insurance will not pay for academics because they think that they should be getting that in school, basically going half-time to school. And also vice versa, if they're too old, they're not willing to give them as much money because they believe that they should have had these services when they were younger. So a lot to consider there. As for challenging behaviors, if the client has too many aggressive behaviors, it would be unethical to have the parents handle a situation like that by themselves, to be able to not necessarily hold them, but they need more support, multiple people to be able to help de-escalate the situation, and the parent might not just be able to do that by themselves. As for the support system that I was talking about, that's basically if anyone that interacts with a client, they all have to follow the same protocol, because if one person does not follow that protocol that the services are providing for the ABA, then you're going to create an inconsistency, and that has the ability to cause more problem behaviors. So on a different note, internet access in rural areas are not as cheap as people think. According to Strober, the director of Telecommunications and Information Policy Institute and professor of communication of the University of Texas at Austin, the Federal Communication Commission increases the minimum speed for internet each year. But for the year 2018, the speed dropped from 25 megabits per second to 10 megabits per second. Now, according to Lazar, the researcher for bandwidth requirements, he states that in order to have a speed that is pretty decent for video conferencing, one needs a speed of 20 megabits per second. And even having that speed, which is pretty good, one needs to take into account that if there's other devices connected to the same access, the speed will drop because the signal is spread out. So the affordable minimum might not seem so cut for the requirements for Tele-ABA conferencing.
Interesting. Devin, our Tele-ABA Pro in-home therapy illustrator, is now going to further support Adam's points on accessibility with some visual information.
So this first image is a study conducted by Mazurek and others, and they looked into the physical aggression in children and adolescents with autism. Their study included 1,584 participants with autism ranging in age from 2 to 17. And they found that 53.7% of their sample size showed aggressive behaviors towards others, including their caregivers. This number correlates with other studies that have stated 56% of children with autism are considered to be aggressive. With this number being so high, it is unlikely that around half of the autism population would even qualify for Tele-ABA under BACB guidelines. This next image is from the Federal Communications Commissions, and it shows that 69% of Americans in rural areas use the internet, but only 39% of those total residents living in the rural areas currently do not have access to internet speeds that have been deemed adequate to stream video and engage in other high traffic activities. Whereas only 4% of people living in urban areas deal with this issue.
So overall, there are risks and benefits to implementing ABA through telehealth services, and they're currently limited in availability. But the pros outweigh the cons because of the vast amount of people that we could reach with this and how much lower the cost is compared to in-home services. And it could greatly impact the client and the family in a positive way. So looking into telehealth and Tele-ABA could reach clients who are in need and don't have access to any services. So if we truly want to provide services to everyone with ASD, there is the route that we should take should be putting more resources into Tele-ABA. And once we work out the kinks of technology, video conferencing, HIPAA, it'll help far more people with a lesser cost to anywhere in the world, anyone in the world who has an internet connection.
So both sides have made some very strong arguments for and against Tele-ABA while emphasizing the impact of cost and accessibility. We will now hear from our fielders, Rosie and Devin, with answers to some frequently asked questions related to Tele-ABA and in-home therapy.
So the first question we have is, what types of families would best benefit from the use of Tele-ABA? Families who live in more rural areas who might not have easy access to a variety of different ABA companies, let alone one, might be the best. Also, families who have busy lives and need a more flexible schedule could benefit because Tele-ABA can be accessed mostly anywhere that receives internet connection. For example, if a caregiver has a last-minute obligation, let's say they're house sitting for someone who's out of town, they're still able to access their appointments as long as their laptop or phone is with them. Another concern is, what is a BCBA's ethical responsibility when considering client preferences in regards to the use of Tele-ABA? So BCBAs have an ethical responsibility to respect the dignity of the clients they're treating. And it's important to recognize whether a client or their family prefers in-home therapy or if they would prefer Tele-ABA. And it wouldn't necessarily be responsible for a BCBA to specifically recommend Tele-ABA unless they believed it would positively impact the client and family and give them access to the most resources needed. Code 4.02 also requires that clients are involved in planning and consent. So it would be important that a BCBA explain how Tele-ABA works, what the family can expect from it, and follow up on if this is still a preferred way of them receiving therapy. Next, we have, are the video conferencing platforms used ethical? So ethically speaking, BCBAs are required to ensure the confidentiality of their clients. There's a handful of video conferencing platforms that are HIPAA compliant and ensure client confidentiality, such as Zoom, Faralink, WeCounsel, Secure Video, and Doxy.me. These video conferencing platforms use security features like encryption to help keep sensitive information from being publicly shared or easily accessed. Many are made specifically for mental health care providers and behavioral services, and they don't require downloads, so families can just simply click a link from their email and be connected with a supervisor. Behavior analysts would also discuss confidentiality at the outset of services and explain to families the security of the chosen platform, and they would record only pertinent information gathered from the video chat, the same way that they would do at an in-home therapy session. Some further questions regarding costs are, is Tele-ABA expensive, and will insurance companies cover it? So as we talked about through the debate, Tele-ABA is about a third the cost of in-home therapy. So while it might not be costly, families may still wish to have it covered by their insurance company. However, not all insurance companies are covering the costs of Tele-ABA right now. Currently, 48 states and the District of Columbia provide some type of Medicaid reimbursement for private insurers for Tele-ABA. States are also working toward creating requirements for private insurers in regards to telehealth. So covered services are defined by the state, and coverage varies from limited reimbursement to covering telehealth service rates equivalent to in-home therapy rates. And the last concern that I'll touch on is what confidentiality issues might arise when providing either in-home or Tele-ABA therapy, and how should these be addressed? So in regards to Tele-ABA, Code 2.05, the rights and prerogatives of clients could be violated if a behavior analyst uses recorded sessions without the client's permission for different uses besides what they're intended for. And Code 2.06, a client's confidentiality can be violated if a video conferencing platform is used that's not HIPAA compliant. So if they used different ones that I didn't previously mention. 2.07, maintaining records. If saved recordings are not disposed of timely and properly, allowing sensitive information to be susceptible to potential breaches in confidentiality, that would be unethical as well.
Okay, so for con Tele-ABA or for in-home, one of the first questions is, will Tele-ABA replace other intensive programs for individuals with autism? And as of now, Tele-ABA will not replace an in-person service because of the limited research showing that the current guidelines meet all HIPAA criterion, as well as the current inability to provide internet services to those in the rural areas. The next question is, how does in-home therapy differ from a clinical setting, and what are some benefits? With in-home therapy, the therapist can be there for daily routines and transitions that may cause difficulties, such as bedtime, meal times, bathing, or other personal hygiene. When therapists provide behavioral services in-home, they are able to address issues better, as they can be there when they arise. And another benefit of in-home is the children are able to be in a familiar environment. And oftentimes, individuals with autism or other developmental disabilities can feel overwhelmed and intimidated in a clinical setting, which may cause them to display unexpected or difficult behaviors when in a unfamiliar environment. With the individual being comfortable and showing their true self, therapists can better implement a plan that will target the areas of concern. The next question is, in what way does in-home ABA benefit the parents? During in-home therapy, parents and family members are able to play a role in a treatment process, and oftentimes parents and family members are encouraged to sit in or observe sessions when possible. By actively participating in the sessions, parents have the ability to gain valuable insight and knowledge to support their children when the therapy team is not there, which is not always the case for a clinical setting. In-home ABA also allows for the incorporation of siblings into therapy sessions. This time can be used to educate the siblings, work on social play and social skills, as well as continue to build a positive sibling relationship. Another family benefit is that in-home therapy provides a convenience that a clinical setting does not. Families can have an ongoing support throughout their day by integrating ABA into their busy schedules and routines. Another question is, Where does therapy take place when providing in-home? Is it throughout the home or in an isolated area? So depending on the therapist's needs, they may require that you set up an in-home therapy room or space to ensure that the child, along with themselves, feel comfortable. This space should be designated for therapy only, and when therapy is not in session, they may request that the child not have access to the space or materials. And then the last question, what confidentiality issues may arise when providing in-home therapy, and how should these be addressed? One of the biggest issues with in-home is multiple relationships and the conflict of interest with the BCBA. Some people see their home as their safe haven and their area to let loose and truly be themselves. When someone enters our safe haven and comments on its beauty or anything else that has to do with our haven, we tend to trust them and slowly unwind with them. This can potentially lead to giving information that we would not otherwise give in a different setting. And this form of trust can create a stronger bond, leading to multiple relationships.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about our personal experiences with Tele-ABA. Has anybody ever worked with Tele-ABA or experienced it?
I haven't worked with Tele-ABA.
Okay.
The only thing that I've had experience with Tele-ABA is supervision that way. So like when our BCBA had a baby, she was still able to supervise us, give us feedback on the spot, but it was through one of those platforms that Rosie had mentioned, and it was a way for her to continue giving us feedback even though she wasn't there or couldn't be there, like physically. So that was really helpful, and that's a positive experience that I've had with Tele-ABA.
Awesome. So I've had a similar experience as well. Not on my part, but the BCBA that I work under, sometimes she'll have parents video conference her, and the parents will be demonstrating a strategy that she taught them or something that she was working with them on, just to see if they're doing it correctly, and things like that. So those are kind of like little snippets of telehealth that I've been told about. That seem to be really positive as well, and that have gotten really good feedback from the BCBAs that I work with. So, yeah.
I'd like to make one last comment, if I can, from personal experience as an ABA/RBT supervisor. Not everyone is cut out to be an RBT or to do the services that we would provide. With giving said that, some parents would not be able to be cut out to provide those services. So that's why I say, like, there's a lot of things, a lot of factors to look into other than just, trying to find the affordable route.
Right. You make an awesome point. So awesome work, everyone. So it's clear that despite all of the pros and cons associated with both Tele-ABA and in-home ABA, we can all agree that the most important thing is to provide services to those that need them. And Tele-ABA and in-home therapy both do that. So the methods may be different, but the overall goal remains the same, and that's to facilitate positive and socially significant change, whether it be through a new, more modern route or a more traditional route. As long as we're helping people. So thank you for watching our debate on Tele-ABA and in-home therapy. We hope that you learned more about our topic and that you enjoyed our debate. This is a list of references for your review. Thank you.